Most girls walked into prom in shimmering gowns bought from downtown boutiques. Jenna walked in wearing her grandmother's curtains, or at least that's what the other students whispered behind her back. But they didn't know the full story. They didn't know how her mom had spent 3 nights sewing every seam by hand. How Jenna had sketched the design herself, using only pencils from the dollar store. How the ruffles were made from leftover fabric scraps, and the beads, each one, had been salvaged from a broken thrift store bracelet. She didn't have much, but she had pride. And when she stepped into the gymnasium that night, chin up, heart pounding, and that dress swirling around her like a defiant flag, she didn't feel poor. She felt powerful, but not everyone saw it that way. At first, the whispers followed her like shadows. Is that patchwork? Looks like something my grandma wore in the 60s. She made that herself, yikes. She overheard them, and she smiled anyway, because Jenna had promised herself one thing. No matter what happened tonight, she was going to shine, and she did. By the end of the night, she wasn't just in the room. She was owning it. When the music swelled, Jenna danced like the gym floor was a Broadway stage. When her friend Mia took a picture of her twirling in the colored lights, something about that image caught fire, figuratively at least. What Jenna didn't know was that Mia posted that photo on social media with the caption, "She made this dress out of nothing. Most beautiful girl here." By morning, the internet had something to say about it. And Jenna, she woke up to the sound of knocking. Lots of it. She peeked out the window and saw news cameras lining her front yard. Jenna rubbed her eyes, convinced she was still dreaming. The sun hadn't even fully risen, and yet her tiny front yard was buzzing, tripods being set up, reporters adjusting their mics, a van with a local station's logo parked half on the sidewalk. Neighbors peeked from their porches, some with coffee mugs in hand, all whispering the same thing. That's the prom girl, right? The one with the dress. Jenna stood frozen by the curtain. "Mom," she called softly. There are people outside with cameras. Her mom, still in her robe, holding a mug of tea, hurried over, looked out the window, and nearly dropped her cup. A knock came again, louder this time. Jenna opened the door just a crack. "Hi, are you Jenna?" a woman asked, holding a mic, with a big smile and a camera crew behind her. "I'm Rachel from Channel 9. We'd love to ask you a few questions about your prom dress. It's gone viral overnight." Jenna blinked. What?" Rachel chuckled. "Your photo's been shared over 300,000 times. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You're everywhere. People are calling you the girl who stitched a dream." Jenna's heart raced. Last night, she was just hoping no one would laugh. Now, strangers were praising her creativity, her courage. It didn't make sense, but it felt surreal. Within minutes, Jenna and her mother had pulled on some presentable clothes. Jenna stood outside, dress in hand, doing her best not to let her voice tremble, as reporters bombarded her with questions. How long did it take you to make it? What inspired the design? Were you nervous showing up to prom in a homemade dress? She answered honestly. It took us about a week, she said, glancing at her mom. We used what we had around the house, some old lace thrifted fabric beads from a broken bracelet. And then she added, I was terrified, but I wanted to walk in proud of who I am. We didn't have money for something fancy, so we made our own kind of fancy. The reporters loved it. So did the internet. By noon, she was trending. Hashtags like "Yo Prom Queen from Scratch" and "Sewn with Love" were all over social media. Some people praised her bravery. Others called her a fashion rebel. Design students even started breaking down her dress construction online, applauding the structure, the layering, the originality. But what no one expected, what not even Jenna could have imagined, was who would message her next. A blue checkmark, a name she recognized instantly: Carla Fontaine, one of the most famous fashion designers in the world. Jenna gasped as she opened her DMs. Saw your prom dress. Stunning. Raw, emotional, authentic design. Let's talk. CF. Her hands shook. Was this real? Was this actually happening? She turned to her mom, phone in hand, and whispered, Mom? Carla Fontone just messaged me. Jenna stared at the message, rereading it at least 5 times. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, heart pounding. What do you say? To one of the most iconic fashion designers in the world. Her mom leaned over, eyes wide. Sweetheart, is this real? Jenna nodded, still stunned. It has the blue check mark and everything. It's her. After a deep breath, she typed back, Thank you so much. I can't believe you saw my dress. I'd love to talk. She hit send. A minute passed. Then 3. Then, typing, her phone buzzed. Let's do a video call. I want to meet the girl who made that dress. 15 minutes later, Jenna sat in front of her mom's old laptop, wearing a clean top and lip gloss hastily applied. Her hair was pulled back into a braid, and the homemade dress hung in the background on the closet door. The screen flickered, and there she was, Carla Fontone, sitting in a sunlit office, surrounded by sketches, fabrics, and framed magazine covers. Jenna. Carla beamed. It's a pleasure. That dress, you have something, girl. You don't just sew. You speak through fabric. Jenna's cheeks flushed. Thank you. I never imagined anyone would see it, let alone you. Carla leaned forward. Tell me, have you ever considered fashion design? Or do you just make things for fun? Jenna shrugged. I've always loved drawing outfits, but college, design school, it's not really an option for me financially. Carla smiled. Well, I think it just became one. Jenna blinked. I'm sorry. I'm offering you a full scholarship, Carla said calmly. To the Fontane Institute of Design. We'll cover everything: tuition, materials, housing, all of it. Jenna's mouth fell open. Her mom gasped from the doorway, tears forming. I believe in raw talent. Carla continued. And you've got the kind of voice this industry needs, real, rooted, and unapologetically original. Jenna could barely speak. Is this a joke? She whispered. Carla shook her head. No joke. Just promise me one thing. What? Keep sewing like your heart's breaking open. That's where the beauty is. That evening, Jenna sat on her porch, the sun setting across her small neighborhood. The dress was beside her, and for the first time in her life, she felt seen, not pitied, not laughed at, seen. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a news alert. Teen's homemade prom dress earns her full ride to elite fashion school. She stared at the screen, then laughed, because what started with whispers and side eyes was turning into the loudest applause she'd ever heard. By the next morning, Jenna's story was everywhere, not just on social media, but national television. News anchors called her the girl who stitched her way into the spotlight. Morning shows ran her prom photo with split screens, comparing her dress to designer gowns, and the verdict from masculine experts: this girl's got an eye. But while the media storm was exhilarating, something else even more unexpected began to unfold. People started reaching out, not just designers or reporters, but girls, hundreds of them, from all over the country. Some were in foster homes. Some lived with single parents. Some had already given up on going to prom because they couldn't afford a dress. They messaged her, left comments, tagged her in videos. You made me believe I could show up in what I have. You reminded me that creativity is more powerful than money. Can you teach us how to make our own? Jenna scrolled through every message, tears welling up. These weren't fans. These were her people. Girls who knew what it felt like to be invisible, to be laughed at, to be left out. And now they were all lighting up because of a dress. That afternoon, Carla Fontane called again. I saw the messages, she said. They're pouring in. I want to do something, Jenna said, without hesitation. For the girls who feel like I did. For the ones who think they're not enough just because they can't afford a $400 dress. Carla grinned. Say no more. Let's build something together. And just like that, a new idea was born. Carla offered resources. Jenna brought the heart. Together they launched the Thread Project, a campaign to donate fabric supplies and simple sewing patterns to girls in need. They'd also create online tutorials filmed by Jenna herself, teaching girls how to design their own dresses with what they had. Every stitch is a story, the tagline read. Within a week, fashion brands, influencers, and sewing communities joined in. Schools began reaching out. Churches, youth centers. What began as one homemade prom dress was turning into a nationwide movement of confidence and creativity. Back in her small room, Jenna hung her now famous dress on the wall, framed like art. It wasn't just fabric anymore. It was a flag, a banner for every girl who ever thought she had to hide her dreams behind a price tag. And as Jenna recorded the first video tutorial explaining how to turn thrifted fabric into a layered skirt, she smiled into the camera and said, "This isn't about being fancy. This is about being fearless." Jenna's first sewing tutorial hit 1 million views in 3 days, not because it had fancy lighting or a perfect setup. It didn't. Her sewing machine sat on a folding table in her bedroom, and her camera was a borrowed phone propped up by stacked books. But it was real, honest, and full of joy. Jenna laughed when she pricked her finger. She showed how she made mistakes and how she fixed them. And more importantly, she made it feel like anyone could do this. Soon, videos began popping up from all over. A 15-year-old in Detroit holding up a dress made from her dad's old button-down shirts. 2 best friends in Georgia twirling in dresses they made from thrift store curtains. A girl in Texas who wrote, "I was going to skip prom, but now I'm going. And I'm going in my dress." The Thread Project was now a hashtag with millions of views. And Jenna, she wasn't just the face of it, she was its heart. But even as her world grew bigger, Jenna stayed grounded. She still ate cereal on the front steps with her mom every morning, still sewed late at night with a playlist of indie pop and lo-fi beats, still cried when she got letters in the mail, real ones from girls who said things like, "You reminded me I'm not invisible. You gave me back my confidence. You made me feel beautiful," quotes in something I made with my own hands. Carla Fontaine arranged for Jenna to visit the Fontaine Institute before her scholarship started that fall. It was a sleek, modern building in the heart of New York City. Glass walls, mannequins, fabric rolls stacked to the ceiling. Jenna stepped inside with wide eyes, but everyone already knew her name. "Hey, you're the Jenna, right? Your prom dress is hanging in the exhibit hall. I loved your tutorial on layering skirts." In the lobby stood a mannequin, wearing her dress, the one she made from scraps and hope. A golden plaque below it read, "The dress that started a movement," created by Jenna Brooks. At that moment, standing in the middle of a design school, she'd never imagined she'd set foot. And Jenna whispered to herself, "I'm really here." And she was. Not because of luck, not because someone handed her a break, but because she believed she could create something, even when the world told her she had nothing. And that belief, it was changing everything. Jenna returned home from New York with a new sense of purpose and a folder full of opportunities. A local boutique asked to showcase her next design. An international sewing magazine wanted to feature her story. Even a popular talk show reached out to invite her for an interview. But Jenna stayed focused. She didn't want to chase fame. She wanted to create. That summer between graduation and moving to the city, she poured her soul into one final design, her most ambitious yet. She called it the Revival. It wasn't just a dress. It was a symbol, layers of fabric, from her community, old scarves, tablecloths, even a piece of her prom dress, stitched together with gold thread. Each panel had a story, and Jenna embroidered those stories into the seams. Names, dates, phrases, little secrets hidden in the folds. When she stepped out, wearing the revival, at her town's summer arts fair, there was an audible gasp. People didn't just see a dress. They saw a journey. One woman in the crowd, an older lady with a cane, came up to Jenna with tears in her eyes. "I haven't worn a dress in years," she said softly. "But I'd wear yours. Because it doesn't just say, 'Look at me.' It says, 'I've been through something.'" Jenna smiled and hugged her. That moment stayed with her more than any headline ever could. Just before leaving for college, Jenna held a small workshop in the town library. No cameras, no interviews, just folding tables, fabric scraps, and girls eager to learn. One by one, they picked up needles and thread, and slowly, nervously, they began to create. Some dresses were lopsided, some sleeves didn't quite match, but all of them were magic, because they weren't just learning to sew, they were learning to believe in themselves. At the end of the workshop, a quiet girl with braids came up to Jenna. "I never thought I was good at anything," she whispered. "But now, I want to make everything." Jenna knelt and looked her in the eye. "You already made something," she said. "You made the decision to try. That's the hardest part." As Jenna packed for New York, her sketchbooks, her grandmother's pincushion, and of course, her sewing machine, she paused for one last look at her childhood room, the place where she stitched dreams together, the place where her story began. And she smiled because she knew this was just the beginning. The Fontaine Institute towered above the skyline like a temple to creativity. On Jenna's first day, she stood in front of the grand glass doors with her mom's old sewing kit in one hand and a tangle of nerves in the other. Around her were students from all over the world, some already dressed in head-to-toe couture, some pulling luggage embroidered with fashion house initials. Jenna wore a faded denim jacket with pins she'd made herself and her signature braid. But the moment she walked through those doors, the past didn't matter because her presence did. Inside, the energy buzzed. Workshops, fabric rooms, mannequin-lined corridors. Instructors carried sketchbooks filled with genius. Students whispered, pointed, "That's her." The thread project girl. The prom dress, Jenna's first class, was designed from memory. The professor asked them to bring a personal item for inspiration, while others laid out vintage handbags or silk scarves from abroad. Jenna placed something small and simple on her desk, a single pearl bead, salvaged from a broken thrift store bracelet, the same one sewn into her prom dress. When her turn came, she stood up and said, "This bead was once thrown away, useless, but in the right hands it became part of something unforgettable." That's what design is to me, taking what's forgotten and turning it into something seen. The class fell silent, then applause. That afternoon, she found a quiet corner of campus and checked her phone. Another message had come in, this time from a woman named Elena, a single mom in Kentucky. "My daughter cried when we couldn't afford a prom dress. Then I showed her your video. We watched it together. Now she's making her own and smiling again. Thank you, Jenna. You didn't just give her a dress. You gave her dignity." Jenna wiped her eyes, because no matter how big the city got, no matter how many doors opened, that was what mattered most. Later that evening, she took a walk through campus and found a wall lined with student quotes. Someone had scrawled in chalk, "It's not about the fabric. It's about what you feel when you wear it." And beneath that, someone had added, "Thanks, Jenna." She stared at it for a long time, then pulled out a piece of chalk and wrote, "Keep stitching your story. Someone out there needs it." Months passed. Jenna found her rhythm at the Fontaine Institute, not just as a student, but as a storyteller through fabric. Her sketches matured, her stitching sharpened, but her heart, it stayed exactly where it began, stitched into the hem of that prom dress, made from scraps and dreams. Her professors noticed. Her classmates looked up to her, and beyond the walls of the school, her impact kept rippling outward. The Thread Project grew from a hashtag into a foundation. It began offering microgrants to young creators, donated sewing machines to schools in underserved areas, and most importantly, it inspired thousands of girls to believe they could make something beautiful no matter what they started with. Jenna began traveling on weekends, holding workshops in libraries, community centers, even backyard tents. Wherever there were girls with stories to tell, Jenna showed up with a needle, a spool of thread, and a smile that said, "You belong here." One night, as she packed up after a workshop in a rural town, a girl about 13 shyly approached her. She held up a hand-stitched purse. It wasn't perfect, crooked seams, mismatched colors, a button dangling from one side, but it was hers. "I made this from my old school uniform," the girl whispered. "It's the first thing I've made that I actually like." Jenna knelt beside her and said, "You didn't just make a purse. You made art." The girl beamed. That moment, it mattered more than any magazine cover ever could. Back in New York, a gala was held at the Fontaine Institute. Jenna was asked to showcase a full collection, her first runway show. The final piece, she saved it for last. The lights dimmed, a spotlight came on, and down the runway walked a model in a stunning modern reinterpretation of her original prom dress. Still soft, still strong, but now refined, radiant, and laced with story. The crowd stood and applauded, not just for the design, but for what it represented: resilience, creativity, courage. After the show, Carla Fontaine hugged her tightly. "You didn't just become a designer, Jenna. You built a movement." Jenna smiled. "No," she said, "we did. Every girl who ever wore thread like armor, every mom who ever stayed up sewing, every heart that ever felt unseen." She looked out at the crowd, her instructors, her fellow students, and a few girls from Thread Project sitting in the front row. And she knew this wasn't about fame. It was about legacy, and hers was sewn in every stitch. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Leave us a comment. What's something you once made that made you proud? And join us next time on Life Plot Twist, where even the smallest stories unfold into something unforgettable.